I certainly do not. I think the Transport Department and the government should recognise the fact that public transport should be treated as a public utility. It should be treated no different from a main road or anything like that.
Well, now, it is a fact, I think, that the annual loss last year was $1.6 million on the Newcastle services. Now, how are you going to account for this?
That's correct. But then again, when you consider Germany and overseas countries, they're paying 300 or 400 million to support a public transport system. Private buses are subsidised, and as early as 1952, the Labor government subsidised buses to $8 million. This Liberal government has done less for transport than any of its preceding governments.
Well, is subsidy the answer, or what is it?
I think that the real answer to government transport is, first of all, to recognise it is an essential medium of travel for pensioners and people that depend solely upon it. Secondly, I think that they should go out and seek public patronage. I believe the fares are exorbitant, and it's reached the stage now that people can't afford the luxury of travelling on a government bus.
At the delay, the further delay rather, I should be the place to determine, in naming the site for the proposed international airport. I suggest to you, gentlemen, if you would keep your remarks to about 10 minutes. So I'll ask John Torres to take over from here.
That this meeting emphatically protests against any proposal to establish an international airport in Somersby, calls upon all elected representatives, federal, state and council, to vigorously pursue all avenues of opposition to it.
Now, I think most of you know Harry Medlicott, but if you don't, may I introduce you to Harry Medlicott. We visualised as the orchard is concerned would be in a very invidious position. They couldn't sell their properties, well, they could sell their properties at a price. They'd be restricted as to what they could do. They'd be stuck there with aeroplanes going over their heads 24 hours a day.
Why don't you want an airport, an international airport of Somersby?
I feel, and I'm trying to be very dispassionate, dispersonal on this one, that it would ruin a very beautiful area, one which we welcome light industry, but one which is predominantly a residential area. And I think that this would have a very adverse effect. We're already bursting at the seams, water, roads, all the service facilities, and I think this would place an impossible burden on local government, even allowing for the expected subsidies and help.
Stronger protests such as
Oh, they go to Graham, do they? They go to your place, Graham. Hey.
Mr. Wilton.
Yeah.
Mr. Jackson has just returned from the Department of Lands, and he's returned with a statutory declaration to the effect that he will not go on with the work at Coon Island. It states, I, Leslie James Jackson, will not continue with demolition work at Coon Island, or in no way will subcontract any work on Coon Island demolition project.
By jibbing on the contract, as you quite understand, it's not like there's $1,000 laid out in ready money, but by the time it would have went through legal procedures, if the Lands Department wanted to force the issue with me, it would have been well and truly $1,000 that I would have been up for. Plus the amount of money, I'd say overall I'd come out losing about, with that and with what I estimated on the job here, about $2,500.
Mrs. Holden, how and why did you first join Weight Watchers International? Well, the reason I had to do really was to get over to Australia. They wouldn't accept me at 19 stone 4. They said I was a medical risk to come over. I could have had a heart attack with the weight I was. And if I could have possibly get down to 12 stone, they would accept me again for another medical. And 8 months after, I weighed in at 10 stone 3, and they just couldn't believe it.
You obviously look like a different person. Did you feel like a different person?
Definitely, I feel different altogether. I mean, my husband married me when I was fat, and he's seen me thin. I've seen myself fat and I've seen myself thin. But believe me, I'd sooner be thin any day.
What principle is Weight Watchers based?
Well, it's more or less a food eating program. You've got to eat 3 meals a day to lose this weight. We more or less re-educate your eating habits. And this is it, it's all group therapy. It's like Alcoholic Anonymous, knowing that someone's interested in you losing this weight.
In what way do you re-educate eating habits?
Well, there's certain foods on the program that have to be weighed, and there's certain vegetables you have to eat at different times of the day. You can have 3 pieces of fruit a day, and you have to have so much non-fat milk a day so that your skin doesn't go saggy. You know, you don't have any wrinkles and that. It just takes your skin back.
What's the success rate of the program?
Well, we've got quite a few £100 losers in Newcastle, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane and Sydney. And of course we've one young girl in Newcastle that's lost £150. She's gone £3 below me and she looks real good.
The first of the Hunter Valley Research Foundation's 3 open day sessions is over, and nearly 100 people will have left the Maryville Research Centre a lot more easy in mind about the future of this area, thanks to addresses by Professor Saul Rennick and his staff. Is the future really a rosy one?
No, the future for Australia certainly isn't rosy. It's getting tougher all the time.
Well, our area.
Our area must be as good as any in Australia and better than most.
There was little that was really new in today's presentation, although it was, summed up very effectively. But the section on local government are local governments really as sort of all-powerful as people would have believed from today?
Well, they are, and I think the fact that you noticed that illustrates a very important point about the work of the Research Foundation. We keep ahead of the game in trying to understand what's happening in the region, and it became apparent to us over the last couple of years that local government was so significant in the growth of the region, as it is in the growth of Australia, that unless some definite effort was made to understand its role and evaluate its role, and not just chit-chat about rates and things, but understand what the problems are, then regional growth would be very seriously affected. This, of course, as you say, was noticeably new. I'd contest your former remark that there was little that was new. Everything was new because we introduced you to new census material from the economic census, from the population census. We showed you new figures about changes in population distribution in suburbs. We introduced the relationship of the Central Coast and the Lower North Coast to the region. I think perhaps it had that nice touch of professional presentation which lulled you.
Maybe so. Another point which did, if not lull me, it surprised me, was the current figures on unemployment, which make headlines daily. The fact that unemployment in the Hunter has in fact dropped and is not going up on the national average.
That's right. We seem to have turned our corner. Today's figures, of course, were largely influenced by what happened in South Australia and Western Australia. And those are regions, even though they're states, they're regions of very narrow economic base, and their capacity to regroup and reorganise are very small compared with our own. A great strength of the Hunter region is our capacity to do something different because of our huge resource base.
You repeated frequently, though, you and your staff repeated today, that what happens in the Hunter now happens in Australia sooner or later, and usually sooner. Does this mean that if we've turned the corner, Australia's turned the corner?
I believe we're on the way. We must be, because the sorts of problems that were concerning us now seem to be well on the way to solution. We were concerned about what was going to happen with pockets of unemployment. We were concerned with technological change and its impact. We're concerned with the collapse of the mining boom. And of course, being good boomsters in this country, we're now launched on the land boom, so we'll have to face that one later on when it collapses. But I'd say we're basically overcoming these problems.
And coming back to local government and one or two other points here, though, you pointed out the problem, that local government is big, and even some of the people in it don't realise the fact yet just how big it is. What about the solutions? You know, can your findings here genuinely influence local government or anybody else to do something about the problems?
Sure. We've influenced development in the Port of Newcastle. We've influenced development in irrigation. We've influenced a great deal of development in housing in the region. We have a major development on the influence on the central business district and its development. We can influence local government.
I don't want to denigrate your efforts, but there are still problems in all these fields.
Sure, because that's what economic growth is. Economic growth is not a pretty picture that stays still. It's a movie that keeps on running forward. There's a script that you could write backwards. There's an anticipation you have to write forwards. You're trying to understand what's going to happen. As I said, you've got to be ahead of the game. You've got to understand what it's about. People often say to me, why don't you do what you did in 1956? Well, you know, that's quite irrelevant because there's nothing really like 1956 anymore. We're living in 72 and already the plans are being laid for 73, 74, up to 80. The forces are already at work, and what we wanted to show today, and I think showed pretty clearly, that these are strong, active and continuing growth forces in the region.
And the final question here, and it's obviously a problem and perhaps a solution that you at the foundation here are going to have to face, the centralisation through computers. Are you suffering from being in the Hunter Valley instead of in the megalopolis of Sydney?
Not really, because I think the wastage factor in computers is enormous. The errors that people have made, the way in which they tie themselves up, the empire building by computer operators, the change in hardware, the application of new software to this, the slow realisation by executives that in fact computers are aides rather than masters. All these things, thank goodness, have happened a fair distance away from here, and we've been able to skim off a lot of the best.
If they haven't happened as far as Newcastle's concerned, we're still losing ground to Sydney in centralisation. Computers haven't put anything back
I agree.
yet.
Well, the electronic revolution is of course the one that Australia has to embark on next. And until we understand this, until governments are prepared to build government offices all over the place and link them by all sorts of modern electronic means, which will put one public servant in touch with another without having to bring him to the Black Stump in Phillip Street, until business planning can in fact be efficiently interchanged over whole networks of electronics. Until we grasp this in Australia, then we're just going to go on getting centralisation.
Well, if all that interested you, and you've got an opportunity to attend in the next 2 days, by all means do so. Don't miss it. And if you haven't, most of it's in the booklet that the Hunter Valley Research Foundation has put out to cover just these open days. Now, thanks to Professor Cyril Rennick for being today's guest.
Councillor Mackenzie, do you think your resignation and subsequent re-election was an expensive way to prove a point?
Well, the only people that thought it was expensive is perhaps one newspaper circulating in the Shire and a few of the people outside my own riding. The people I represent, which after all they are my first consideration in the council, they didn't seem to think it was a dear way.
It is reported to have cost ratepayers $2,000 though.
$2,000, yeah, about 19 cents a ratepayer in Port Stephens.
Do you think your protest will have done any good?
Well, I think it's highlighted the fact that something has to be done in Port Stephens Council, because as it stands now, I think it's a proper schmozzle.
You won't resign again?
There's no fear of me resigning again.
In Sydney on Saturday, the soccer crowd was kept waiting because a visiting team wanted money before they played. Not only wanted money, but required that it be in cash and in American dollars. Firstly, I thought that these were sportsmen trying to help their code. Secondly, many sportsmen now require their money before they perform, boxing being the worst offender. Isn't it time that sportsmen were paid on their ability to perform, as this money first in no way requires you to do your best? The public are asked to pay big money to see visitors compete. But tell me, what country would pay the Olympic Fund to see Shane Gould swim? I think Australia is being held to ransom by some sporting bodies, our reputation being that we are soft touchers. Lakes, by all reports, were unlucky to be beaten by Maitland. This may be so. People sitting in a position close to incidents may be able to judge certain things, but commentators, no matter how good we think we are, cannot absorb every incident that leads to a referee making a right or wrong decision. The referee is a human being, but he is the man on the spot. All sportsmen have had decisions, both good and bad, made against them. So let us accept the fact that as long as sport exists, these things are going to happen.